How to assess your body composition. So your body composition is made up of the amount of muscle mass you have versus the amount of fat mass you have. We're going to work out what yours is and then what your next move is with that information. So first, a quick introduction, why you should bother listening to me on this fine Saturday afternoon. Well, my name is Tom Sergi. I used to be a British paratrooper and now I run the Guerrilla Platoon, where we get results like this, literally in the art of body recomposition, dropping body fat and building muscle. So just you deserve to know like why you should invest your time listening. Am I credible in this area? And just I thought I'd show you a bit of proof as to why that is. I do appreciate I did introduce myself in the very introduction lecture, but we'll always have newcomers come into the group, and you all deserve, if you're a newcomer seeing this and this is the first lecture, you deserve to know why you should warrant investing your time, because everyone's time's precious. So I do appreciate that. Now, my promise to you is by the end of this lecture, you will know your ratio of body fat to muscle and then what your next move should be. And I think it's important to understand why is this important to you, no matter what your fitness choice is, your sport or your future goals. Because you may think, well, I don't want to be a bodybuilder, and I would agree with you. I also don't want to be a bodybuilder, and that's not what we do with those guys inside the coaching program. But what we do aim to do is get you leaner, more muscle, and a bigger zone 2 base. Which then, if you're leaner, you're going to be lighter. If you've got more muscle, you're going to be stronger. And if you've got a bigger zone 2 base, you're going to be ultimately fitter. Now, would you benefit in your own sport, in your own, whatever your fitness domain is, being lighter, stronger, and fitter? So I've got guys that are at ITC Captric Screws, and they're PB in their 2 milers after being like 3 months into the program, because they're lighter, so they're carrying less body fat. They're stronger, so their connective tissue and muscle is more stern when it hits the floor and drives off. They're able to carry that load, the Bergen, at a lot more efficient rate. And then they're fitter as well, because we use zone 2 cardio to get the body fat down as well. So they're ultimately fitter. Now, I know a lot of you have mentioned from that poll that you've got previous injuries. And honestly, like, what solves previous injuries is hypertrophy training. Because in hypertrophy training, you really dial in and focus on what's known as the eccentric portion of the rep, which is the downward phase. And that takes 3 seconds. And that is the way you repair and grow back like connective tissue and muscle is through eccentric loading, and also isometric holds. Isometric hold is where a muscle isn't changing or shortening in length, think like a plank. But also you could do that with any form of movement. Well, in hypertrophy training, you pause at both the bottom and the top phase of the rep. So you have that time there, that time of detention. With hypertrophy training, you're going to take the exercise for a full range of motion. Therefore, the muscle gets challenged at full lengths as opposed to like half reps. So we don't lift weights like a sewing machine, more like we just take it for a full range and get the gain off the back of it. Now, it may surprise you that when you look at these guys, you might think, they look a lot heavier and they're carrying more muscle. Now, you'll be surprised that actually every single one of these guys here is lighter in their photo on the right than they are on the left. The reason for that is, you just cannot build muscle faster than you can lose body fat. So the end outcome is that you've dropped a lot of overall weight, and that's why you're then going to be leaner, lighter. Like, for example, with this guy, he actually dropped 20 kg in 16 weeks, and that's why he looks a lot bigger here, but it's because you look bigger when you're leaner, because we can actually see the muscle underneath. This guy had dropped 16 kilos, so again, he looks like a superhuman at the end, but he's actually 16 kilos lighter. This guy dropped 15 kilos, but the rest of the people here, they dropped maybe 4 to 5 kilos because they've done just a body recomposition. Not everyone needs to lose a vast amount of body fat, some just a small amount. So I think that's why it's important to understand that whatever your sport is, if you're a runner, would you benefit from being lighter? Probably. Would you benefit from being fitter? Like, obviously. If you're stronger, you've just got less chance of getting injured. The reason why recruits going through training get injured is because they're just not strong. They're not strong in their connective tissue, they're not strong in their joints, and ultimately when you start to take that through distance and load it, of course it's going to buckle. It's just not fit for purpose, it's just not durable. So you'd benefit from that. So whether you're going to be a boxer, whether you're going to be a runner, whether you're going to go and play rugby, you would benefit from being lighter, stronger and fitter in most sports. And then if you wanted to be a bodybuilder, you'd be in a prime position to go and do that as well. So that's why I do believe it will benefit everybody inside the group. And I thought it's important to mention that, because you may think, I don't want to be a fucking bodybuilder. I like ultra running. I like doing this, that, and the other. But actually, if we get this right first, it will serve you in whatever your goals are moving forward. So let's get into the meat of the video. Now, the first thing we want to understand is how much body fat are you actually carrying? And what we're going to do is assess your photo, or in this case, my photo, against a load of pre-recorded guys which have already been pre-recorded with specific body fats against them. Now, when we're assessing body fat, you've got a couple of options. You've got, obviously, photos, you've got calipers, you've got the DEXA scan, you've got that weird machine in your gym that you can go and put your hands on. Honestly, most things are just, they're not that accurate. Even a DEXA scan is not that accurate. Unless we literally cut you up into pieces and put your fat stores on one side and everything else on the other, we wouldn't truly know your exact amount of body fat. Even taking calipers. Me taking calipers at the gym I used to work at in Dubai, at the start of my time there to the end, wouldn't have even been the same, because I got better at using them. So calipers are only as good as the individual taking them that needs to be trained in order to take them. So your best bet, and what's worked so well for me to get those results, was honestly comparing photos. It's having a trained eye to see how much body fat are they carrying relative to this here. And of course, you're not going to fit directly onto a figure of 5 number. You're going to probably be sat somewhere in between. One thing I will say is just be conservative when you assess your body fat percentage. So you could look at this and think, right, got ab structure, okay, maybe sat in around 15. For sure, I'm not 15% body fat. Now, the reason it will serve you to be conservative is you will mentally know that the time frame is going to be longer to get down towards that goal, so you already set yourself up for it. And B, you don't give yourself more food than is needed, because that will also stall progress. So always be conservative. Maybe get a second set of eyes on it, because we'll always bias ourselves. Now, as I assess mine here, what you want to look at is compare the divot that you see down here at the bottom, compare what you can see from the rib section and what you can see around the midsection. The midsection will tell you a hell of a lot when it comes to assessing body fat. I do appreciate sometimes it helps to have side shots, but for this instance, we're just going to roll with the front. So after I assess this, for sure, I'm nowhere near as lean as this guy at 15%. I'm probably closer towards 20, but the fact that you can just about see some ab structure poking through, we'd probably say we're sat around 18%. And again, always be conservative, because it will serve you in the long run to be conservative. Now, what I've created here is a calorie calculator, which will spit out your food that you need to eat relative to your body composition. There are plenty of calorie calculators online that you can use that will give you that information. Apart from, there's one issue with them. A lot of them, they don't work out your calories relative to body fat. But we're doing a body recomposition. We're not just looking to drop overall weight, because then you'll just be a smaller, still fatter version of yourself. That's not the goal. It's lighter but leaner. So what we're going to do is put in the body fat percentage here, which is 18. I know this guy was 88 kilos at the time, so you put these two metrics in. So obviously you've weighed yourself on the scale, you're 88, your body fat percentage is 18. That's then going to tell me your lean mass, which is, for this guy, 72.1 kilograms. It's going to give us your RMR, resting metabolic rate. Never, never, never take your calories below RMR. Now, just for context, if I was coming in at 35, 40% body fat, or even over 30% body fat, you can take your calories for the initial phase fairly low, as in as close to this as possible, but never below it. Just always remember, as a rule of thumb, never go below RMR, because RMR is your normal daily function of calories. So you don't want to go below that, because it's just not smart, and to be honest, your life would be pretty darn miserable for doing so. So it's going to give us your RMR. Now, that alone is not enough. We need to know how active are you within a given day. For context, when we were in the military, your activity level would have been at a 1.75. If you've gone from the military, you're in construction and you're on your feet all day and you're just burning calories, your activity level is a 175. Likewise, if you just sat behind a desk all day, every day, you barely get 10,000 steps, you train maybe 3 times a week, then you're at a 135. And obviously, if you're absolutely sedentary, like never move at all, 1.2. For the average person, you're probably sat around 155. Get near 10,000 steps a day, walks a bit, trains 3 to 5 days a week, not completely sedentary, but not like you used to be in the military. So you're going to get this figure, your RMR, and this figure, which they'll automatically do it. They'll times it together and give you a maintenance calories. When you do it, you've got drop down, you can change it, or you can just type it in. I'm sure you all know how to use Excel anyway. So that will give you your maintenance calories. Now what we want to do is, obviously, if we need to drop body fat, because you would assess what is your goal. For most of you, probably just going to be get down towards, let's say 10%. You can see your abs. You're going to be lean, light, and happy as Larry at that point. That's going to be the goal there. So down towards 10%. Now, if you want to get down towards 10%, it will depend on where you're starting from as to how great that deficit is. Remember me saying the guy that's 35% can go in a big deficit. The closer you are towards this, go in less of a deficit. And just as a quick rule of thumb to do here, this drop-down menu will work out how much of a deficit you need to go in. If you're close towards 35%, put it at 1% drop. If you're anywhere around 25%, stick it at 0.7. If you're in between 25 and 20%, go 0.5. And for the guys that you can see, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy, that you're all kind of leanish when you started, but you're not content with where you are. For these guys here, don't put yourself in a massive deficit, because you still need the fuel to pull off the body fat, but you also don't want to go... You don't need more fuel because you obviously need to pull it off, but you don't want to go so great in the deficit because you'll just end up getting like skinny quick. So you still need that fuel. So for those guys, you want to then come in at around about a 0.25, so just below maintenance. So as a rule of thumb, just take this away. The further away you are from the goal of 10% body fat, the greater the deficit. Now, of course, if you start at 35% body fat and you dial yourself down to, let's say, 18, you can rebalance the macros and the calories. Of course you can, because your body composition is now different, so it may need different food. So just understand that when you're doing it in phases. But let's say for this guy, we're going at 0.05, so he's gone just shy of 3,000. Now he's above 2,500 calories, and that's going to be his feeding to start with. And for this guy, you're probably going to look to drop around about 1 kilogram a week. For most people, you can look to drop 1 kilogram a week, especially in the beginning, and especially if you are like 25% or above body fat. Even if you're lighter weight, you can still drop 1 kilogram a week if you're above 25% body fat, no problem. Now, what this will do is it will give you your macros. So macros are made up of proteins, fats, and carbs, and this will automatically spit it out for you. And the way it does this is protein is relative to your lean mass. Your lean mass times 2.4. That is the healthy amount. Or as a rule of thumb, you can expect it to be 1 gram per pound of body weight. The reason why it's good that this works it out, though, is if you're 35% body fat, you don't need 1 gram per pound of body weight, because it's not the adipose tissue that requires protein, it's the lean tissue. And that's why this is also important, because, again, knowing body fat, knowing lean mass, we can actually give you proper macros, whether it's the apps and the calorie calculators online, they won't understand that, because obviously how would they be able to work out your body fat for you? Fats are set at 20% of the overall target. This is a healthy amount to keep them at, and then the rest can be filled with carbohydrates. Now, it's always nice to know what's the goal that you're going to push to, and what's that going to look and feel like. Now, I actually ran this cut and finished up from 88 down to 75. But what you can do is take the lean mass and obviously add 10% to it. And then what that's going to do is it's going to give you the goal to aim for. It's going to give you where you are now, and then you can work out the time frame to get there. You can pretty much expect in a fat loss phase, if you've done it properly, to drop 1 kilogram a week or pretty close to it. But maybe give yourself a week or two fudge factor if there's a lack of adherence. And then that way you're going to know where I am, where I want to get to, the time frame it's going to take me to get there, the amount of overall food I need to eat, the breakdown of that into proteins, fats, and carbs. And then you may be thinking, and obviously we're going to have a full nutrition lecture on what you should eat for that, but just as some quick hands-on information, you've got protein sources relative to 20, 30, and 40 grams. What should you actually eat? So how much of that food, and what does that equate to in calories? The same goes for carbs. The same goes for fats and fiber. Now, This is also, if you didn't have scales, like when boys go and obviously they deploy and they're still with me, we need to work off a different metric. So we use palm sizes to measure food. Not as accurate, 100% not as accurate. You want to be using the scale for everything. That's the way you can quantify the data. The next best thing is you don't have a scale, you're going to measure it via your hand. And of course, that's going to be literally rule of thumb, so relatively loose. But nevertheless, that's the next best thing. So that is how you will assess your body composition with this. I believe I can drop this in the WhatsApp group, so you should have this as well, no problem. And yeah, I hope you found this useful. I hope this will then set you up on what it is you need. Now, you may already be 8 to 10% body fat, and you may be thinking, well, I need to go into a little bit of a surplus. So then you can work out what that is relative to here, because you can also put this into pluses and minuses as well. As a quick rule of thumb, if you're going to go into a surplus, just find your maintenance, and to start off with, add another 200 calories. Don't be so quick to just chuck food at things, because if your body's not using the fuel to actually drive performance either in the gym or performance in your sport and domain, you're just going to store it as adipose tissue, and you're going to need to pull it off at some point anyway. So just be slightly cautious when it is you're doing this. And then on the flip side, as I spoke about, if you're below that 20% and you've not really trained for a while, you could sit at maintenance for 8 to 10 weeks, and naturally the body will square itself away. That's what we do for the guys that start in this position here. You want to sit just below maintenance, slight deficit, run that for 8 to 10 weeks, and then after that point, drop the hammer, pull the body fat off, and you get a peeled up individual that looks obviously primed and ready. And all these people are now very lean and responsive to training stimulus. So another benefit of getting down to these levels is you're lean and responsive to training stimulus, so the work you then do is going to have a greater impact on your physique. But most importantly, the way your body will utilize nutrition is of an advantage now, because if we give these guys in the start photos more food to build muscle, what's that body going to do? Bearing in mind what it's used to doing, it's going to store it as more adipose tissue, more body fat, because that's ultimately the space it's in. It's not going to take it and think, oh, well, now you can be more food, I'm going to make sure we build some muscle with this. Whereas when you're lean and responsive, your body partitions nutrients a lot more efficiently. And specifically, the way it utilizes carbohydrates, because you're more insulin sensitive, it will utilize that a lot more efficiently. So there are many perks and benefits to getting down to 8 to 10%, as well as just the look and obviously how we feel, the confidence that comes with that. So I hope you found this useful. If you did, in fact, if you didn't, if you don't understand anything, drop it in the messages below, and I will get back to you with responses to that. And then any spin-off sections off the back of this video that you think you would want me to cover and see. I've got a plan for a series of lectures, but like, your ideas will obviously be welcome with open arms, because I know you've got an issue, I solve with the problem, and there's merit to that. So thank you for taking the time to listen to me, and I will get this sent to you, and we'll see you in the next lecture.